what you say, not only in your deeds confessed, but in the most unconscious way is Christ expressed.
So Reba has a wonderful surprise for you.
I'm 105 years old. Well, I lived here in the Mount Vernon, so the Mount Vernon schools were good. So you got a good education.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, as I said, my mother graduated from the Mount Vernon School, so, but I didn't, because I was never a lover of history. Well, that's about, and of course, those were the days when you did what your parents told you to do.
Okay.
Otherwise,
okay, mm-hmm.
you could get a whipping.
A whipping. Okay.
Yep. If you didn't obey.
Where'd you get a whipping with? Where'd you get a whipping with?
Oh, well, little switches. We didn't get it very often.
Okay.
Because my mother was the kind that you obeyed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we had to take and honor elder people.
He had to honor the elders.
Yeah. You didn't talk back to older people then. Well, then you didn't talk back to your mother.
That's right.
why you got the whipping.
Yes.
So, so I was brought up with that kind of a, what's name? And of course, we went to church all the time. Oh. You see, as I said, we being not white.
Okay.
You just had a certain church that you could go to.
Okay.
So, therefore, everything was really around our church.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Was it strict? Was your church strict?
Well, I wouldn't say strict, because back in those days, everything you did, it was strict.
Okay.
I mean, people had their laws.
Yes.
And you better do them.
Okay.
Especially when you were young.
Yes, because that's all you knew.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the way we were brought up.
Remember the story about your mother and fathers? How they felt about education?
Oh,
Said you had
well,
to go
as I said, my mother was brought up in Mount Vernon, and she was graduated from Mount Vernon.
Okay.
School. In fact, I said, of course, I got a graduation picture right back there.
I think your grandfather said that the kids had to go to school 12 years, whether they graduated or not.
Yeah. He was born on a plantation.
Okay.
So, of course, he didn't go to a regular school, but one of the people that had the plantation, they had a sister. She was married, and she would call him in, and she taught him to read and write. Yeah, she taught him to read and write. Right. So therefore, when the slaves were freed, uh, he didn't have the trouble that ordinary ones would because he knew he had this what's your name, of how to read and to write. That's why he insisted upon his children going the full 12 years, because he realized how valuable it was to have a good background.
Where were some of the places you traveled?
Well, we traveled to Europe.
Did you go to Israel?
Israel. Oh, yes, Israel. Of course, we wasn't there that long, you know. That was where we just went on trips, and you wasn't there that long, but we just there long enough to know how they did things.
Where did you go in Europe?
Where we went was to France. Since in school, I did learn a little French, and of course, I was down in South America when I had grown and worked for a family that their youngest daughter married a fellow, and they bought a home down in South America, so it was in, so I visited it down there. It was Brazil. Of course, I went to practically every place in the United States. Of course, it was in the United States, they would, naturally, you had the same routes wherever you went.
Yes.
But naturally, I mean, people would be different.
What's the most interesting change that you've seen during your lifetime?
The past years, life has really changed in general, because naturally you came up with, you're coming up where there was a different age. And of course their ways of doing things was different. You know, the United States got changed because you begin to have things that you didn't have back in the older days.
Okay.
Like the automobile and electricity and all that kind of stuff. You see, we didn't have that coming up.
Yeah.
I have learned because I really see the changes over all these years.
Okay.
And like now, I mean, to me, it's nothing like when I come along, you know. Of course, we didn't have electricity and things like that, you know. And you had to coal, you had the coal stoves that you cook by, and so I mean all that you see is so modern today, and people naturally changed with it.
Yes.
So it made the living different. Well, church was really our life back in years going back. You have to adopt to as the time is today. Ever so many years, then it's a different era, really. We have to realize that a lot of the young people who come up today wouldn't know even what we're really talking about, you know,
Yes.
because they're in a different era. And there's so many years, things change, and then you're in a different era. Of course, you know, I said we were brought up in gardens where our food was really fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Our food,
Was fresh.
hmm?
Your food was fresh.
It was fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because you grew it. You grow it then in your backyard now. And when you got ready to cook, all you had to do is go out and pick what you wanted to have for the meal.
Mm-hmm.
And then meat, back in those days, the farms is right around where your era.
Uh-huh.
And therefore, your meat was always fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with good food,
Yes.
you know. And which, of course, I think had a great deal in our growing up.
Yes.
You know. You see, my dear, when you get 105, you don't quite see things in the same way. And remember that our food, when it was left over, it didn't have the facilities to keep it. All of our potatoes and some things that certain vegetables we kept. That was all through the winter,
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't have furnaces in our basements and things like that. You had fruit trees,
Okay.
and so you'd pick the fruit off of these fruit trees, and Mother would can them, so we had fruit the year round. And then there was some fruits, like apples, that we could eat, you know,
Yeah.
because the way they were kept. Yeah, there were certain fruits that we could just keep in our basements, because, see, we didn't have any furnaces.
Okay.
So it was an entirely different way of living.
Yes.
That's all there is to it. Our living required that we had to do something all the time. Children coming up, as they was growing up, each year there was certain things that they could do around the house. Like, we had kept our houses dusting. Well, you had to do it every day. When you was older, a child around 14, and you had younger brothers and sisters, well, then you helped to take care of them.
Take care of them.
Mm-hmm. So, as I said, picture of my sister over there, I was 13 and a half years, and I always said I was the second. Children was really, as you grew up, was growing up, and with your, each year that you grew, then there was certain things that you did around the house. So that made a difference about keeping homes. You see, at that time, not only the father worked, but your mother worked. So when it's time for especially the mother to come home, well, sometimes she had to stop a little place to relieve herself, you know. So, I mean, the way things has changed, it's unbelievable, you know. When you would have to be born as old as I am to really appreciate that. And I don't mean by that. We as kids, we had a very nice time, you know. Yeah, we had a very nice time. The longer you live, you know, life is so different. So, but I always try to adapt to the time, you know, and not make it necessary or try to take and do the way I want to do. You know? That's just a normal thing for people. And some people get ideas in their head, and they try to make everybody to be what they want them to be. Well, you see, you can't do that. It's just different. That's all there is to it, you know. And so I as a whole, would say that I enjoyed life, even when I had to, because we had to work, you know, when you got up a certain age in a place the size of Mount Vernon, you walked every place, you know. You walked every place. You walked. Yeah. In the winter time, when it's snowy, snow like that, and then the wife was going up the street, and they had children behind them. They made this single file, and you walked behind, you know. Now you don't even have to walk. All you have to do is telephone someplace. Which, of course, we didn't have no telephones. Well, I mean, you see, that's what I say. It depends on what era you live in, because however you lived, that's the way they lived then. So, therefore, you didn't feel like you were being different or anything, because you just lived. That's the way people lived. I don't know. It seems to me as those things come along, you used them and enjoyed them, but that was it. I mean, I think that was because coming up in those old years where you had to do things so in routine, you had to leave your back door open. I mean, that's what we did. We had to leave our door so that the people that brought our milk and everything come in our back door and then put like the milk and then in the refrigerator and things. See, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. We seem to arrange. So, and of course, having to work all the time makes a difference. You see, I started working when I was in the 8th grade. Really? Yeah. And, of course, I worked all my life. I mean, I worked, well, it was, when did I quit working all that?
When you were 82?
Hmm? Yeah. 82.
That's when you came to live with me. That's when you stopped working.
But we had to work all the time in order to make money to live on. And so we were, work, to me work wasn't that. It was very necessary. But you didn't think about it as being, you know, a special thing. And I said, of course, we walked every place, so you like Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon didn't have streetcars.
Mount Vernon had streetcars, finally.
Finally, yeah, they had streetcars.
Mount Vernon never had street.
And they only had 2 streets that they ran on. And that was Main Street and High Street, and they were the main streets in the town. And so then you could take a ride there, but then where you lived was all these little side streets, so you still had to walk, you know, afterwards. I mean, it was an entirely different life. That's all there is to it. And of course, that's what I was brought up in and used to it because of it, as she said, for years. Because I worked, you know, I worked all the time. We had to. I'm sorry to be so slow about this, but as I said, this old mind does not work like it used to. When you leave, maybe an hour or 2 hours, it'll come to me.
Give it 1 or 2 hours, it'll be right there, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, it's very difficult for me to. We was brought up on the Bible, so the Bible to us was, you know, I remember that the 2 things that Mother was very watching about: do not steal and do not lie. That was the 2 things from the Bible that she brought us up on. And that was what, if you lied and you stealed, that's when you got your beating. We never, my mother would whip us. We didn't get whippings that often.
Okay.
And I think that was because Mother, as I said, she went to school the 12 years and graduated. It was one of the top graduators in her class. So therefore, I think that we just didn't. I mean, we knew that we couldn't get away with anything because if we did, we knew where it would go. And my mother was one of these kind. She wasn't a lover of beating. But when we do something, and you knew that, and she'd find out, you know, what's her name, she'd say, okay, just keep it on, but you're just really building up a beating. And then when she did whip us, she started from the last time she beat us until she beat us for her.
Everything come back to her.
Hmm?
Everything would come back to her. And remember that time you did?
Didn't come back to her. She had a mind.
Okay.
My mother had a wonderful mind. You didn't fool her one iota.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At what age did your mother pass?
Yeah, she lived to be in her 90s. Well, that's what I say about my grandfather on my mother's side. Was a booker, and he was 97 years old. Died. He was 97 years old. See, back in those days, he was brought up. I said he was born on a plantation, so and his children had to go to school the 12 years and things. So I mean, it was when you were younger, you respected age. That's all it was to it. You really respected age. But my grandfather was, and he had another boy in his early 50s.
Wow.
And then he lived to be 95 years old. So, age like that.
Runs in your family, huh?
Hmm? Well, it not only in our family, it seemed to run in, a common things back in those days. Well, our water came from wells down in the ground, and then it was pumped up at the different homes. So I mean that's another thing we lived, back. So, or you got another question?
No, I think I'm good.
Hmm?
I think I'm good.
Thank you so much.
Just, we had a great time talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're more than welcome, because I just feel blessed that I've lived this long and can still talk. Life is just, as I said, I've seen my eras where as years have gone by, that how in ever so many years things changed, everything, and you have to adapt to yourself again,